where were you born, and where did you travel in from for this tour?
I was born near Brighton, southern UK, but then I moved to the east of UK, a small town called Haverhill, and I kind of grew up there and had my formative years, and then I moved into a city called Leicester, which is where I live now, and I'm here in USA. Went to Toronto, from Toronto to Minneapolis, Minneapolis down to Austin, Austin up to Seattle, Seattle through to Portland, and then Portland down to Los Angeles. So yeah, it's been a great trip.
That's awesome. Tell us about your musical journey. Where did you start in the music? Mm-hmm. How did you reach the dub? How did this all work?
Well, I mean, music's been like such a, you know, a focus and a love in my life from the start. When I was a kid, I just loved music. And when you're young, like everybody likes music, especially like growing up in the 1980s, like me. Music was kind of all we had, and everyone's into music. And you kind of think that everyone's into it in the way that you are, and then slowly you realise that actually you're a bit more into it than other people. It really means more. And when I was growing up, you know, I was lucky to grow up in a time when like reggae music was huge. So you had like big hits, you know, Aswad and, you know, Smiley Culture and Eddie Grant and, you know, kind of Musical Youth. All these things were like huge hits. But I was into this kind of like punk, kind of like indie kind of vibe. And I taught myself to play guitar. And in the scene I was in, there was, basically we lived in this really like kind of one-horse town where nothing was happening. So we had to kind of create our own culture, so people made their own bands, wrote their own music, and that was really an important lesson for me. And I was young then, 14, 15, 16. And then when I moved to Leicester, Leicester's got an old school Caribbean community, so you had sound systems playing from the 60s all the way through, and you'd hear music, reggae music, dub music coming out of people's cars, out of people's houses, booming down the street, and I just completely kind of fell in love with it. And Abashanti, his crew, even though he's from London, his crew were based in Leicester, in my city. So he was playing, when he very first started, like 1990, he was playing in Leicester all the time. And, you know, looking back now, that was such a kind of lucky thing to experience, because it wasn't really happening anywhere else. And those sessions were amazing, super heavy, amazing music. And at that time, the beginning of the 90s, you've got all this new kind of British sound system music being made for the first time, like Dub Judah, Dread and Fred, Alpha and Omega, Disciples, and I just fell in love with that whole thing, and then boom, that was it.
Beautiful. So ABBA, all the influences that you mentioned. So what year did you start producing dub?
Well, I started kind of jamming with some friends. I guess 92, 93, just like, you know, someone's bedroom, just kind of shitty keyboard, playing a bit of bass, drum machine, someone had a delay, and we were sort of teaching ourselves how to make dub music. Yeah. And then I think around sort of 94, I got like a really basic mixing desk, an old keyboard, and what was kind of pivotal at the time was like an Atari computer, so I could sequence the keyboard and I could start writing music, yeah, and then starting to dub it. And then it took me a couple of years, because in those days there's no YouTube, so it's just you pick up information where you can. You teach yourself a lot just from listening, and then you pick up bits of information from people around you. And there was a few people in Leicester who were also producing music, and they were helping me. But also, it was the time of the kind of dance music revolution. So lots of people were making like house, techno, jungle had just started, trip hop. And friends of mine that were producers in those genres taught me a few things as well. And then slowly I kind of taught myself, and then I made some dubs. And I wasn't very confident about them. And one of the Abashanti crew, Baba Shanti, who's no longer with us, rest in peace. I used to buy my records from him because I was such a vinyl kind of digger, and I used to just spend all my money on records. There's so much music coming out. And then I was saying, I've been making a bit of music, but I'm not sure if it's any good. And he said, oh, give me a tape. So I put some on a tape, played it to him. And then he was, oh, Steve, this is wicked. Abashanti's going to love this. And I'm like, oh, it's not really ready yet. And it's great. I'll give it to him tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then the next time I see Barber, he's like, yeah, Abashanti loves it. He's cut the tune on to acetate. He's going to play it. And I'm like, what? I didn't know. Is it ready?
Yeah.
And then the week after, he calls me and says, yeah, Abba played it in London.
Yeah.
And like, it sounds great. And I'm like, no way. So I went to the next session in Leicester. Abashanti played the tune. And that, kind of kick-started the whole thing in terms of like confidence.
Yeah.
Because when you start, I had no confidence.
Yeah, that was like a big break.
And to hear your music alongside your peers' music, and to be taken seriously was really like,
huge.
Maybe I can do this.
That's beautiful. That ties right into the next question. So, I was sharing with you last night that some of your tunes, I called out Mama Africa. There's others that have been important for me, Government Man, Ojakam Now, a number of things. How does, and you mentioned Leicester having a Caribbean population, how does Rastafari come into the music and influence what you're doing? Or does it,
Well, I mean, it's roots reggae music that I like, that style of music. Rastafari, roots reggae music is what I fell in love with. That's the music that I was hearing Abashanti play, I was hearing Jashaka play, and that's the music I loved. Because for me, it's kind of like two things. It's like a musical style, this minor key, heavy, dark bass lines, hard rhythms. Like I totally fell in love with that. But then also the kind of, the social, spiritual, and kind of like lyrical message and political message.
Yeah.
I really resonated with that.
Yeah.
And then those kind of forces join together, and that's like a really powerful thing. So, and that I just wanted to make that kind of music. It seemed really powerful.
Yeah.
And here, years and years later, it still seems powerful to me, and I love to make that kind of music. Music that's got this message, that's kind of got something beyond just music.
So, what have you observed over time? You've been playing dances professionally for a long time with these messages. What do you think happens to people spiritually, psychologically in these dub sessions? What's your feeling?
Well, I mean, there's a mix, because like people can be very nostalgic about, back in the day, everybody was so spiritual and whatever. I don't subscribe to that, because I was there back in the day, and for sure, some people were, but there were also people in the dance who were drunk, high, falling over, whatever, especially in UK, where it's kind of crazy. Right. So, especially in Leicester, where I was living. So, it's kind of, not everybody was totally dialed into the kind of, the upliftment vibe, and they're just enjoying the music and enjoying the whole vibe. But definitely in a roots dance, it's like, whether it's like, Josh Shaka playing 30 years ago or me playing last night, there's this idea of like bringing people together and like creating like an environment where you're going to play like music that's really like hypnotic and uplifting, but also there's a sort of spiritual and political message that is on top of the music, or is part of the music. Because like, I love other kinds of music, but a lot of other music's kind of hedonism. They're just to enjoy. Right. But the reggae music has this kind of like cultural and political kind of vibe, which I just fell in love with from the start. And the idea of trying to continue that to having a gathering and people kind of enjoying the message, which is genuinely like a positive and uplifting message, is for me is really important.
Beautiful. That really came through last night too. I mean, we all felt it. We
Cool.
all felt the energy and the teaching and the vibe of what you were sharing. It was beautiful. I think this will be the last question. So South Bay Dub Club, Haile Charged, we're about a year and a half into trying to build a community in Los Angeles and throw sessions in Los Angeles. Do you have any advice for us as somebody who's been in the industry for 30 years?
Any advice? I mean, like last night was a great session. Like the spot was really good.
Yeah.
Like it's a bit like an old school. Like in UK you'd have a community centre. In Italy you'd have like a squat.
Yeah.
Like a kind of sort of simple space, not too big, where people feel comfortable.
Right.
No sort of security,
Yeah.
and it's just like an independent kind of cultural kind of spot. Obviously, in LA, you've got this weather, so you can have a whole outside-inside thing.
Right.
Can't do that in UK. The sound system was great. That's why I enjoyed it. You know, one of the reasons I enjoyed it so much is it just sounded great, like super heavy, super loud, but not like dangerously loud, just but intense. You know, the music has to have that intensity for me. And you know, everything you guys are doing, you're going about it in the right way. There's a community of people. There's like a diversity of people in the session. It sounds good. The place is good. It's just, you know, introducing more people to it. Because in the UK, you know, from when reggae music was happening in Jamaica, it was happening in London like the same day because of the connection between London and Jamaica. Whereas here, it's like, for sure, there's an old school Jamaican community, but the connection isn't as kind of strong musically like it is in UK.
Yes.
So you're having to, like I said, when I was growing up in school, I would hear reggae music. It was everywhere in the 80s. A lot of people here are not so familiar with it, so it's a bigger job to introduce it to people bit by bit. But you just created the right environment for it. And like last night, I think people will have gone home thinking, yeah, I enjoyed that. And I'm going to tell people about it, and slowly people are going to come. So and I've seen this in many places, like when I started playing in France, in Spain, in Italy, in Croatia, all these places that have a good scene for the music now. It started off very small. Even in Mexico, Mexico's got a huge dub scene. Yeah, big dub scene now.
So it can work.
And it started very small.
Yeah,
so it totally, it just takes time. And you're talking years.
Commitment.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Patience.
Yeah. Final thing, any shout outs, anything we missed, any last thoughts or last words?
Well, I mean, for me, coming all the way from UK to play in USA is like, it's an honour and adventure, because I love to travel and to go to places like, you know, again, growing up in the 80s, you're watching TV, you're here in Los Angeles. And then years later, to get invited here to come and play my music really is special. And that's, you know, I consider myself very lucky to do that. And that's why I try and do the best job when I do get to play in places like this. So, but you've got all the elements here, you see. You got great venues, you've got marijuana, you got sunshine, you got sound systems. It's like, you got it all here, so it could really happen.
Well, we look forward to having you back many times. So much thanks for what you did first night and for your contributions over the years. Bless you, man. Thank you so much.
Respect.